Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for the one who stores up treasures for himself, but is not rich in matters of God." The Gospel of the Lord. So St. Paul today speaks to the Ephesians, Gentile converts, because he's an apostle to the Gentiles. And so he says, "You were dead by means of your transgressions and sins." Dead. So the wages of sin is death. Death comes by when we sin. We're dead. Dead to reality. Dead to the life that God has given to us. Following the ruler of the power of the air. So there are two ways to die. In sin, dying to sin. Disobedience, he said, in which you once lived, following the spirit of the age. The spirit of the age is the spirit of disobedience. The spirit of the age is the spirit of pride. The spirit of the age is the spirit of dancing along with the culture and believing that all is well. The spirit of the age is buying into the commonsensical principles that people just take to themselves and live that way. And just tell them, say, that's how it is. So we can become used, we become enamored just by that way of life. Meanwhile, we are dying installmentally, dying and become animalistic, dying and living by the flesh, the world, and Satan. That becomes the principle. All of us once lived among them in the desires of our flesh. So the flesh becomes the norm. I want to eat this. And I want to eat it this way and this way and this way. And guess what? I'm filled. Then you cannot do anything. There is a desire that wants us to satiate and pleasure the self and pleasure the flesh. And then the spirit is dying. because the spirit cannot flow. The spirit cannot come alive. Following the wishes of the flesh and the impulses of the flesh. And that's why people can go to extra length. They talk of pleasure in the self. Self this, self that, self this, self-help, self-care, self. And so psychology is increasing because the Greek word for the self is psyche. So psychology as a study of the self is increasing. But you know what is decreasing? Our relationship with God. Self, ego, just like that. And so selfishness increases. It says, but then it said, yeah, you were by nature children of wrath, anger, wrath, disobedience. Wrath, children of wrath. Whenever you see wrath, whenever you see all those kind of indignity, all those kind of people, charging out and malice and all, that's what's stirring it up. The Satan, who is there, trying to be the Lord of the air. But God, who is rich in mercy, because of the great love he had for us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, brought us to life. Grace, we were saved, brought to life especially through our baptism, where we renounce Satan, and our parents and godparents renounce Satan on our behalf when we were baptized as kids and as infants. But as we grow up, we then must consciously continue to renounce Satan, to hand over our baptismal promises to the hand of the Blessed Mother. And so then she becomes the one that helps us to crush this spirit that is trying to make us submit totally to the flesh, to the impulses of the flesh, to Satan, to the world, to disobedience, to anger, to pride. That's where, so when we do that, then we begin to see how we begin to flourish and we become detached. Our attachments, our inordinate attachments, we begin to grow, and then the world does not really matter. If we have, we don't have, and St. Paul says so. Empty stomach, filled stomach. I've learned to live without any of that holding me down. So look at that man. Look at that man. He had he had a bountiful harvest. Bountiful harvest. And what did he say to himself? I will say to myself. Myself. He didn't see any other person. I will say to myself, what shall I do? My harvest, my barns, my grain, myself. You see that? Self. What will I say to myself? What do I do? My barn, my grain, my. That's all that he cared about. Meanwhile, when we remember the Israelites in Genesis chapter 41, they had a lot of harvest. Well, what did they do? They stored in for the future, for other people, for all those who were hungry. They realized this had been given to them by God. How many times do we say, oh, I am blessed? But when you say I am blessed, it's just cultural talk. It's not like I am blessed, oh, God has blessed me so much. No, I am blessed. I am lucky. It's on a flat. It's like, I've done good things for myself. I've done a lot for myself. And guess what? I'm waiting for the golden age. Just be on my couch or travel the world. See the world. There's no connection, no openness. It is by grace. That bountiful harvest was by grace. The bountiful harvest of our soul is by grace. The spiritual beauty of our soul is by grace. It is not by us, so that we will not boast, St. Paul says, so that nobody can boast. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It's an amazing grace that you and I have the opportunity to be attending Mass and participating at the Eucharist. It's an amazing grace. An amazing grace to discover the old reality, to discover iniquities and go to confession. It is an amazing grace. To be detached from the flesh, from Satan and the world, is an amazing grace. The amazing grace. Now these priests, Isaac Jogues and Jean de Brebeuf, in the 17th century, they realized the opportunity, the grace that God has given to them in the North Americas to preach in Indiana to the Indians, to preach, yet they were killed. They surrendered their lives. They were martyred because they know their lives does not actually belong to them. It belongs to God. They were not carried away by the horizontal. They knew they were only meaningful because of their vertical relationship with God. Check it out. Anywhere you see, more people are thinking, what do people think? What do people think? Oh, many people think this is not going well. And people are dealing about statistics and dealing about that, the polls and statistics. And what are the people thinking? What are the reviews that are coming out? You know that people are working on the horizontal. They're never thinking of the vertical relationship. The horizontal never has meaning. If the vertical does not give it meaning. By grace alone, we have been saved. Nobody can boast. Holiness and sanctity are all gifts by God. We need to continue to give him thanks for all he does. Let us rise in prayer. Let us pray, brothers.